run into the city of San Diego versus and then a public utility controlling inside the city?
I would say it's going to be the transmission and distribution infrastructure, district and power restored. So you're going to add two competing power companies trying to restore service in an emergency. I think it would make it very complicated.
Okay, appreciate that. I'll wrap up my comments, Council President. I side at the microphone to answer the questions very directly. As kind of transparent and fact in comparison, I think the public expects when we're dealing with multi-billion-dollar decisions and electricity in San Diego.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Campillo. This is an information item.
The state mandates in our bills is ridiculous. You want us to take away the low-income assistance program? No. State bills? You want us to take away the wildfire safety mandates? These are the state requirements in the bills that we pay. That is ridiculous. For low-income people, and it shouldn't be on the backs of cities to do that. Second, we already pay. We, the city of San Diego, already pay for infrastructure we don't use for SDG&E. And I'm now reading about the Golden Pacific PowerLink project that could go entirely around the city of San Diego, yet our ratepayers might have to pay for it. So I'm glad you're having a lot of stakeholder engagement, but you need to engage the citizens of the city of San Diego who could be paying for this. And second of all, you should be doing more than just virtual open houses. If you're going to run this through a natural state park like Borrego Springs, go to Borrego Springs, talk to people in the communities in person about this before you go to a natural preserve. Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you. So, not seeing anybody else on the lights. This is an information item. No motion required. Thank you to Brittany, Nate, Bill, and whoever else got in the hot seat. And we're willing to take the questions from the council members going forward. There was a lot of ground covered. There was a lot of ground not covered on this discussion. But I'll reiterate what the report said, that it is feasible from an economic point of view. It's feasible from a technical point of view. A lot more work would have to be done, as you kind of try to summarize, Heather, and I appreciate that. So with that, we will close item 200. Again, thank you to everyone. And Deputy Clerk, please introduce item 201.
Thank you, Council President. Item 201, SDG&E Franchise Independent Audit Report, the Franchise Compliance Review Committee Report, 2023 through 2025.
Yes, I know I got there. Travel safe. Thank you. I keep telling you. I know you think.
All right, settle in. We should get that on the record, and let's go on the timing. That's for both.
Thank you. My name is Megan Ong. I'm joined today by Aaron Cohen and Eric Heinlein from Pro Co-Movement and Matthew Zeitler from our Franchise Compliance Review Committee. Today we'll be presenting to you the results for our second 2-year compliance period of the SDG&E franchise, which will include a presentation from our independent auditor, as well as a presentation from the Franchise Compliance Review Committee. By way of background, in July of 2021, the Council passed 2 ordinances that award the gas and electric franchises to San Diego Gas and Electric. The franchise is a 10-year term with an automatic renewal for a second 10 years unless there's action taken by council. As additional level of oversight, the franchise requires 2 things. First, the city is required to retain a third-party independent auditor every 2 years to perform an audit of SDG&E's compliance with the franchise. And second, the franchise requires the city to establish the Franchise Compliance Review Committee, also known as the FCRC, a citizen committee comprised of 2 mayoral appointments and 3 council appointments. The FCRC is charged with receiving the independent audit report and providing its own report to council with a recommendation on the automatic renewal on the second 10-year term. Both of those reports will be presented today. In July of 2024, we presented a similar item for the first 2-year review period, and at the same meeting, council passed a resolution to establish the second FCRC to review the second compliance period, which covers July 8th, 2023 to July 7th of 2025. I would like to take a moment to thank the volunteer committee members, Matt Brennan, Linda Lattimore, Cody Gubin, Potomi Reichsegler, and Corey Albright for their time and dedication to this committee. In regards to the independent auditor, in October of 2022, city staff released an RFP for the independent auditor, and after a competitive process, Crow LLP was selected as the vendor. Crow will present their audit findings for the second 2 years. Crow presented their audit findings for the first 2 years franchise period as part of the hearing in July 2024, and the city chose to exercise its option to extend Crow's contract for the second 2-year compliance period. I have with me today representatives from the Crow team who will go into more detail about their audit procedures and findings in a few minutes, but at a high level, the audit covers the second 2 years of the franchise. The second 2 years of the franchise includes the financial, operational, and cooperative requirements under the franchise ordinances and the supporting documents, which include the administrative MOU, the undergrounding MOU, and the energy cooperation agreement. At this point, I will pass it over to our independent auditor, Crow, who will provide an overview of the audit findings and recommendations.
Thank you, Megan. Next slide, we'll go through some brief introductions. We'll talk about audit scope and procedure, and then our findings and recommendations. So next slide. My name is Eric Nyland. I'm a director with Crow, and with me I have Aaron Cohen, who's the senior manager with Crow. We don't have Bert with us, but he was the engagement partner on this project. I'll turn to Aaron to talk about the scope.
Thank you, Eric. So the scope of the audit was an independent audit of SDG&E's gas and electric franchise agreements. And as Megan mentioned, 2-year period was July 8, 2023 through July 7, 2025. In complying with franchise agreements, administrative MOU, utility undergrounding MOU, and the energy cooperation agreement associated with the franchises. Now, our audit procedures included conducting interviews with SDG&E and city staff. We spoke with SDG&E staff, including finance, operational, and oversight personnel. Spoke with many city departments, development services department, and engineering and capital projects, utilities undergrounding programs, and city management. We reviewed and documented requirements of each agreement. We submitted multiple data requests to SDG&E and the city. These data requests were requested for relevant requirements for each of the agreements. For franchise fees, we obtained and reviewed SDG&E's annual franchise fee calculation documents, quarterly franchise fee statements, process documentation, controls information, AR aging reports, bad debt expense support and collection procedures, and documentation of payment to the city. For the administrative MOU, we selected a sample of 13 projects to audit project-specific requirements, things like permitting, inspections, or collaboration. For what we're calling non-project specific requirements, this is information sharing protocols or communication between SDG&E and the city. Similarly, for the utility undergrounding MOU, we selected 8 in-process projects to audit requirements that were project specific, and then review supporting documentation for non-project specific requirements. For the energy cooperation agreement, we reviewed supporting documentation for each requirement. Now, the results of these tests indicated that SDG&E met the 4 audit objectives in all significant respects for the audit period. However, we did include 2 audit findings that were deemed not to be significant to the audit objectives, but warranted inclusion in the report. Now I'm going to turn it to Eric to walk through the findings.
Yeah, so the first of these findings has to do with compliance with the undergrounding MOU, and there were several sections of the MOU that we found non-compliance in, and they're listed here on the slide, and I'll review those with you. For the first of those is 611.2 for a project titled Block BR City Edgar Highlands Project. SDG&E ultimately was not able to provide an inspector at the time of that construction as a consequence. Construction baseline, which includes both an estimate of the cost and a schedule. 2DD job 2, that's the Crown Point 1. And finally, SDG&E has not submitted detailed 90% design estimate for invoices that do not clearly differentiate projects that have reached the 90% completion threshold as required by the franchise. So we have a number of recommendations to address these misses, so to speak. The first is to establish stronger project management controls by developing standardized timelines and checklists. Secondly, to assign a dedicated compliance liaison or project coordinator within SDG&E to limit these misses. Third, to revise invoicing backup materials to more clearly distinguish that 90% design estimate. Fourth, to establish regular joint review meetings with city staff. They've started doing those and are doing more of them as a consequence of this. Train personnel on MOU requirements by reinforcing compliance standards. And finally, link compliance to performance metrics or oversight reviews. So those are the recommendations to address the first finding. Second finding on the next slide has to do with the admin MOU, section 10.b of that MOU. SDG&E did not schedule a pre-construction meeting with the city as required. SDG&E's field crews incorrectly assumed it was a category 1 project, which would not have required this pre-construction meeting, and the project was actually a category 2 project. So there's a couple things that they can do to strengthen and respond accordingly. First, by just project classification work and review processes so that this doesn't happen again. Developing a project checklist to be reviewed by the supervisor before construction begins. And perhaps most important, to train field crews and project managers to clearly differentiate between these two category types. So those are the two findings. The status of findings from the first phase of the audit, I'll go through those briefly here. There were 4 findings last. 2 of these have been remediated. Those are 3 and 4. Number 3 was remediated because it's no longer a compliance requirement in the new admin MOU. Number 4 was remediated because the finding related to a plan completion timing, which they met, although they delayed in getting that done. Both the city and SDG&E ultimately got the plan completed, so it wasn't a compliance matter in this phase. The other 2 relate to number 1 there, inconsistent undergrounding project cost estimates. And so this is sort of a to be determined going forward. In the past, there were some inconsistencies in the overhead allocations to the cost estimates, and they cleaned those up to some degree, but going forward, I think there's still, as they get into more construction projects, there's still a need to reinforce consistent project cost estimates there. The second one is just in terms of collaborating between the city and SDG&E on the MOU for certain contracted services. The council for questions.
At this time, I will pass it over to the it was assigned a very narrow scope per the franchise agreement. Every 2 years, recommend to the city council whether the franchise should be renewed for its secondary term. So we're function as a Brown Act compliant committee and comply with all of the rules of the Brown Act in our meetings. Additionally, our responsibilities include reviewing and discussing the franchise audit, which you just heard, in collaboration with the auditor, preparing a comprehensive written report for you all, which we provided, and then making a formal recommendation to City Council regarding whether to approve automatic renewal of the franchise for a secondary 10-year term.
The committee found that SDG&E demonstrated overall compliance with all 4 agreements: the electric and gas franchise agreements, the administrative MOU, the utility undergrounding MOU, and the energy cooperation agreement. The audit identified only a few minor issues, mostly related to documentation, scheduling, or classification. These were isolated and tactically with no evidence of systemic problems, financial harm, or governance breakdowns. The committee recommends that routine monitoring of franchise compliance continue with a focus on clarifying expectations, standardizing documentation, and reinforcing early coordination between SDG&E and city departments. For the administrative MOU, this means strengthening internal controls and aligning renegotiation timelines with the committee's review cycle. Right now, there's a timing mismatch between when the agreements can be renegotiated and when the committee is actually doing its review. That means the committee's input may come too late to meaningfully influence the process. What we're proposing is to better align those timelines so when the renegotiation opportunities arise, they coincide with the committee's review cycle, allowing their work to directly inform city decisions. For the undergrounding MOU, the committee recommends providing detailed cost breakdowns and establishing a regular review mechanism. Labor-wise for overhead, city for construction. Right now, it's like getting a restaurant bill that just says a total of $200 with no itemization. The committee is recommending an itemized receipt and regular check-ins to make sure everything looks reasonable. For the energy cooperation agreement, the committee is supporting and expanding public engagement opportunities. Next slide, please. While compliance is strong, the committee noted several areas where the processes could be improved. Consistently held, clarifying documentation practices, increasing transparency and project costs, enhancing tracking and reporting under the energy cooperation agreement, and creating additional opportunities for public engagement before agreements or modifications are executed. Next slide, please. The committee recommends continuing to monitor prior audit themes to ensure progress is sustained, recognizing that some issues require ongoing management rather than one-time fixes. It also suggests creating plain language summaries of all agreements to help both the committee and the public understand the purpose, process, and the timelines. Renegotiation timelines, once again, should align with biennial review cycle to improve public engagement, and the committee should have access to draft audit findings for early review. Oversight shouldn't just focus on compliance, though. We also need to look at financial impacts and how these agreements affect the community. Creating structured opportunities for public input, along with more standardized reporting across all franchise agreements, would improve transparency and make it easier for the council and the public to review and understand what's happening. Next slide, please. The committee observed that not all franchise activities carry the same level of risk or public concern, so oversight should focus on areas of greatest impact. For example, routine administrative updates like minor contract amendments or reporting changes don't typically have major community impacts and can be reviewed more quickly. But decisions involving undergrounding projects, rate impacts, or long-term renewal terms have significant financial and public implications. So those should receive deeper scrutiny and more detailed oversight. Some prior audit findings, like undergrounding cost variability, have improved, while others require ongoing management. In this case, continuous improvement, rather than the complete absence of issues, is a reasonable benchmark. To strengthen oversight, the committee recommends establishing success criteria beyond compliance. For example, instead of only confirming compliance, we would also look at outcomes like whether the project stayed on budget or were delivered on schedule. Sharing all public comments so feedback from residents is fully visible throughout the process, not just summarized. Expanding structured public input early in the agreement process, for instance, holding engagement sessions before key terms are finalized, not after decisions are largely set. Enhancing audit scope for cost drivers, so instead of just seeing total project costs, we can clearly see the breakdowns, like earlier, an itemized receipt. And standardizing reporting across all franchise agreements to improve transparency, consistency, and accessibility for the committee, the city council, and the public in general.
Allow the franchise to renew with conditions. Overall structure and long-term impact of the franchise. So our recommendation for renewal is conditions on aligning renegotiation timelines to ensure meaningful public and council input before agreements are finalized. As the question posed, with only minor issues noted in the audit. Undergrounding costs are high and overhead transparency could improve. The previous concerns have been mostly addressed, but climate action progress has been limited, and public input was considered as well. And this renewal would preserve flexibility for future options, like is the approach ratepayers and the city's broader policy objectives. But I would like to underscore that it is important to recognize discuss this, a lot of the discussion you've heard today. Agreements align with the city's long-term energy and climate goals. This is why renewal is ultimately a policy decision to the city council, balancing compliance with public value and long-term priorities. Thank you. We're happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentations. Special shout out to Cody, to Tony, and everybody on the franchise compliance team. Volunteers. You got some fans out there. And all the work to do this. So with that, Deputy Clerk, please proceed with public comment.
Thank you, Council President. This item received one comment in favor and one comment in opposition via our e-comment form, which has been distributed to the council. We will begin with in-person comment. Allegedly, Auditor, please come forward. You'll have 1 minute to speak.
Feels like we're SDG&E's pitch, really. And it's just interesting to have them here and talking about, like, how much is it really going to cost? And it's like $4 to $7 billion, and then it's like, be honest, and it's like, okay, 6 to 8. So interesting how we just let this go on, and as long as we make sure they're compliant with these agreements, but no wonder why the cost is high for undergrounding, because they make
the presentation, running on time, timelines, and that the construction baseline for ways in which they're out of compliance, yet they're making $1 billion a year, and they're
and other things that delay the outcomes. So what are the consequences for this? That was my question. If you do a customer service survey and you find out that they're not meeting the needs of your available for people, that's problematic. So in general, talking about undergrounding, into undergrounding is delay. So what?
As a private business,
Thank you so much both to the auditors and the franchise work in the franchise agreement. For the second, the several hundred. We know we can work on our processes, and we take that responsibility. Review committee for the time and care they dedicate to me and other stakeholders.
Did they get an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F? Can't tell. You know, for $1 billion company, you'd expect an A+. The second thing that's missing here is how much did the city or residents of the city of San Diego have to pay undergrounding, you know, the same undergrounding. And for the lawyers there amongst you, in any way, San Francisco is a takeover. Ours would be an end of a franchise or a lease, and we get the law of fixtures. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Ellier. Please begin.
Well, good afternoon. This has been a long one. I just really wish I could get a contract where when I screw up with a major installation like a nuclear power plant, I get to bill the customers for it. I don't even begin to understand this cost-plus billing that we live under. I will tell you this, 6 months ago, I had solar installed on the unit that I lived in. Unfortunately, I've not been able to take advantage of it until the last 2 months, but I will say this, I generate twice the amount of power that I need. My neighbors and the people on me. I'll be able to take advantage of the benefit of the reduced billing because for 3 or 4 months, SDG&E could not get people out to inspect and approve and turn it on, which is just outrageous. Anyway, get solar, get away from the grid, and get rid of SDG&E. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is caller with the last four digits 8700. Please begin.
Thank you. Joy Sunyata. I don't support the renewal of the SDG and E franchise agreement. My reasons are mostly in the last paragraph of the PowerPoint entitled Conclusion, and I quote, "Conditional renewal supports ratepayers and the city's objectives. At the same time, compliance alone doesn't solve concerns about affordability, rates, or long-term value. Ultimately, the council must weigh both."
With that, this is an information item. No motions required. I'll turn it over to council members and jump in if nobody else wants to. So I will jump in. Again, thank you to the members of the Franchise Compliance Agreement animal that we created. We appreciate the 2 years spent. And if I can make a pitch for you to come back. I didn't do that. I want to speak to some of the things that were raised by the public. We have new serious changes to that when we do the next 2-year review, I don't think we're going to see those same problems because we've gotten much more aggressive, not only with SDG&E, but also AT&T Spectrum and telecommunications. It should going forward, but the new crew internally at the city is doing a fantastic job, so I don't think we'll see it in the next audit as we go forward. And to Mr. Kaczynski, or Bob, because I always pronounce your name wrong, I did reach out to the city auditor to actually look into the Glide report. You think I don't do anything? And the city auditor reported that they have heard these allegations multiple times, and quote, "Our investigations determined that the allegations of fraud, waste, and abuse were unsubstantiated, and that the qualification requirements for any that comes from our independent city auditor. Take that for what it's worth. But again, the good work that you do under the franchise agreement. Thank you again for the good work that you do, and again, the volunteers who stepped up for the committee, very much appreciated. With that, we will go to Councilmember Gilo Rivera.
All right, thank you, Council President. I just want to say thank you. It's a ton of time and effort that goes into this volunteer work that you do. And it is important, and it's one of the things that distinguishes the way that we've approached our relationship with SDG&E with this franchise agreement in comparison to what had been done in the past. I think that positions us better for the future, and I'm very grateful for the work that you do to help us do that. Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Gilo Rivera. Not seeing anybody else in the lights, I will close this item up. And again, thank you for the good work and your patience on a long afternoon. And with that, Deputy Clerk, please introduce item 203.
203, approval of a fifth amendment, the agreement with PATH San Diego.
All right, thank you for that. This is a Fifth Amendment to an agreement. Given that this is the Fifth Amendment. All right, so proceed with public comment on item 203.
Thank you, Council President. We will begin with in-person comments. Pledge of the Author, please come forward. You'll have 1 minute to speak.
And again, you guys want to get out of here, but again, the presentations aren't for you guys. It's also for the people. All right, so this is it. Because, you know, so it's good for business. Being paid out to these people. I want right outside the doors here, there's homeless people sleeping every night. So I mean, is that money well spent? And when there is no, you know, path to another shelter or, you know, some kind of home, it's like a hamster wheel. We just keep going around. It's like, let's give more money. Maybe that will help fix it. No, we don't have anywhere for them to go, but we have these people out there just telling people, you know, that there's nowhere for them to go. But then we're going to arrest them or take their stuff, you know, because they're out there. So seems like it's working. Good job. Maybe you guys could get some more money and throw it at it.
Thank you. That concludes your time. Our next speaker is Blair Beekman, followed by Anthony Rouse.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I'm feeling and improving today, I guess. My knowledge and depth of community issues is feeble. But gosh darn it, this is an item that really needs a public presentation. The work that PATH does for our Hunt and House has been incredible, especially in the past few years. They've proven how much they can house people, and we don't just talk about shelters. We can actually be talking about housing issues. I really ask the council to, if they can, be asking questions after public presentation, and that they can still make their presentation. That would be great too. It's really important to be hearing this item, and I'm really surprised we're avoiding it out of efficiency and to get home early. This is important stuff. I hope we make this stuff more open and clear in our public future. Thank you.
Anthony Rouse.
Good afternoon, City Council. Excuse me. I support the approval of the Fifth Amendment to the agreement with the PATH San Diego program for the Coordinated Street Outreach Program. At a time when we've seen so many of our homeless programs and outreach programs cut, particularly the Alpha Project, particularly I believe it was I forget the Good Center. I'm blanking on the full name of it, but anyway, programs cut, and this is a matter of public safety, and I know how quick y'all are to defend public safety, so I would expect that we could have that same approach with our homeless, that same compassion and empathy, and that these programs can pan out and help the people that they are intended to serve. Thank you.
Neil Good.
Thank you. That concludes in-person public comment. I've started the 5-minute timer in council chambers. We will now turn to the virtual queue, in which there are currently 3 participants requesting to speak. We will begin with caller with last 4 digits 8700. Please begin.
Thank you, Joy Sinatra. Yes, I support the was going to say, so love PATH, just support.
What this PATH San Diego Fifth Amendment means, because it's telling me that the resolution before it describes this routine 1-year extension never mentions it adds a new clause. Our survey.
Good afternoon, council members. It's been a long one, but I did want to make time to update you that RV for a period of time. I'm not sure where I love PATH. They're an amazing provider. We have had nothing but out of regard for money. We are capturing the number of people that are returning to our because after 2 years.
Item for discussion, and we will need a motion. So we'll turn it over first to Council Member Whitford.
Thank you, Council President. I will make a motion to out there
much. Thank you for all the work that Pat does as well. I appreciate it. I know this doesn't increase the amount of the contract, but it's the Fifth Amendment, so are we thinking about doing another RFP at some point, or new scope of services, or what's the plan?
We released the RFP in April of this year, so we intend to fulfill the awardees of the RFP in the next fiscal year.
Sarah, could you introduce yourself for the record since you did respond?
Sorry, Sarah Jarman, Director of Homelessness Strategies and Solutions.
Yeah, it would be very bad if I didn't get that done. All right, I don't see anybody else in the lights. I'll just add my thank you for.
With District 2 and District 8 absent.
All right. And for meeting management, the reason we did that was to make sure that we have a quorum when it comes to non-agenda public comment at the end. So for those that might participate remotely, stay tuned. We may or may not have a quorum to have remote non-agenda public comment. We will definitely do it for in-person non-agenda public comment. Meeting management. All right, Deputy Clerk, please introduce item 202.
Thank you, Council President. Item 202, establishment of the cannabis delivery services business permit and enhanced commercial cannabis.
All right, I believe this is coming from District 7, so Councilmember Kennedy, do you want to have some opening remarks?
Thank you,
Turn it over to staff.
Yes, Council President, thanks very much for that. Before we begin with the staff presentation, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the amount of work that's gone into today's action over the past 2 years, not only from my office, but from the mayor's office and cannabis workers and businesses, members of the public who've engaged with us throughout this process. Cannabis delivery is a complex policy issue, and the item we are putting forward for consideration today is one that puts accountability, safety, and workers first. So with that, I turn it over to Summertime, Deputy Director of Policy from my office, for the presentation.
Thank you. 27 minutes for the presentation.
When you're ready.
Good afternoon, Council President, LaCosta, and council members. I'm standing here today on behalf of Councilmember Campillo, the establishment of the Cannabis Delivery Services Business Permit and Enhanced Commercial Cannabis Enforcement Mechanism. The proposed actions today are to establish a cannabis delivery business permit category for commercial cannabis operators entering the city of San Diego to conduct cannabis delivery.
I'm sorry, can you hold on? We're not displaying, there we go.
Okay.
My apologies for the interruption. Go ahead.
Okay. So that's the first action. The second is to establish a private right of action to allow eligible entities administrative abatement penalties not to exceed $500,000 per parcel or structure. To review the state and by a business's city or county. And at the state level, there are two types of retail licenses. There's a non-storefront retailer or delivery-only business, which is what we're talking about today. And there are storefront retailers or brick-and-mortar businesses. And while state law allows cannabis delivery on public roads, state law also explicitly states that local jurisdictions have authority to regulate cannabis businesses, including through business license requirements. Cities and counties can prohibit cannabis of all business types, some or implement their own regulations. And as shown on the map, this creates a patchwork of local regulations throughout the state. So if a customer in San Diego is ordering cannabis for delivery, it can either come from a permitted retailer in the city, a state licensed business entering the city to deliver, or a business operating outside of legal requirements. Currently, the city only permits storefront or brick-and-mortar cannabis retailers. These are the ones that are limited to 4 per council district, and they're required to obtain a conditional use permit. They are allowed to deliver direct to consumer as part of that conditional use permit. The city allows state licensed delivery to change that, and it does not propose any new land uses. Cannabis delivery is extremely can only regulate what occurs within their jurisdiction. And cannabis businesses can easily avoid those regulations. Cannabis control website is expired, but they currently advertise 30 to 60 minutes. Difference between what's advertised to consumers and where the city currently permits cannabis retail.
delivery-only offerings. Some of these businesses are advertising as based in San Diego and are licensed to the state. Some are not licensed to the state or operate on expired permits or are not following all state and local requirements. State licensing is strict and requires those businesses to return to a licensed premise after a delivery route, to use licensed facilities to restock their product, to dispatch deliveries only after orders are received and logged, and it also requires delivery of cannabis goods to be performed by a driver employed by that retailer, for the retailers to maintain an accurate list of their delivery employees, to confirm ages and identities of customers, and for delivery drivers to carry copies of the retailer's license, ID, and an employee badge, which are just a few examples of the numerous other state requirements as part of commercial cannabis delivery. So with that, the goals for this ordinance are to create a centralized regulatory checkpoint for cannabis delivery services entering the city of San Diego. It's to increase the cost of non-compliance through raised penalties. And third, it's to allow private civil action where the city currently lacks staff capacity. So with stronger civil enforcement, the goal is to incentivize registration for a cannabis delivery services business permit and encourage local compliance. This requirement would be in addition to the business tax certificate and cannabis business tax currently required and administered through the city treasurer's office. So all three of those processes would be administered by the city treasurer's office. Cannabis delivery businesses entering into the city of San Diego would be required to obtain the permit. This does not include current CUP holders, as delivery services are already permitted and regulated through their conditional use permit, and they are subject to an annual cannabis fee at around $15,000 a year. The application requirements are modeled off of the city of Ventura, which has a similar license, and would require a copy of the business's state retail license, a copy of their business tax certificate, information of all owners and employees, proof that employees are direct employees of the delivery service as required by state law, and the fee amount would be determined in a future action to determine the exact cost recoverable amounts related to the registration or permit. Changes are to increase civil penalties in 3 categories in the code regulating commercial cannabis operations. The first is to increase court-awarded civil penalties for commercial cannabis violations up to $20,000 per day for cannabis business. The second is to increase administrative civil penalties for violations up to $20,000 per day, not to exceed $500,000 per business. And third, this ordinance defines cannabis violations as a public nuisance, which would then allow the city to abate violations if there's capacity. The penalty amounts are aligned with recent updates to the Land Development Code, which was updated at $10,000 per violation, not to exceed $500,000 per parcel. But the significant enforcement change is to introduce a private right of action for cannabis-related code violations. Private rights of action are more commonly used in labor law, but was implemented to allow civil enforcement against cannabis violations most recently through AB 1171, which was implemented in 2024. The ordinance proposes establishing the private right of action to allow legal cannabis businesses or labor organizations representing cannabis workers to file civil actions to enforce compliance. This means business for administrative abatement penalties. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the work and the presentation. Now I'll turn it.
Thank you, Council President. Sergio Alcalde from the IBA's office. As presented by staff, this proposal would make 4 main changes to the municipal code. First, it would create a new permit category specifically for cannabis businesses that are based outside the city but deliver cannabis products to customers within city limits. Consistent with the status quo, this proposal will not permit delivery-only businesses based within the city. Second, it would establish a private right of action, allowing compliant cannabis businesses and representative labor organizations to pursue civil action against operators without a valid city permit. Civil penalties recovered in this manner would be shared with the city. Third, it will classify cannabis businesses without a city permit as a public nuisance. And lastly, it would update fines for those that fail to comply with the city's cannabis permitting requirements. Based on our conversations with relevant departments, the fiscal impact of this proposal is uncertain but may not be substantial. There are three noteworthy sources of potential revenue land in the proposed share of civil penalties recovered through private right of action, which would be one-time in nature. Regarding permitting fees, the number of businesses likely to seek a new delivery permit is limited. Currently, to conduct business, including deliveries within the city, cannabis businesses outside the city limits must obtain a business tax certificate and remit cannabis business tax. The city treasurer's office indicated that there are 5 of these compliant businesses. Staff noted that if a new permit is established, these 5 businesses are expected to obtain the new permit in addition to the business tax certificate. Cannabis delivery services that do not currently have business tax certificate, however, would likely not comply with the additional permitting requirement. Given the small number of affected businesses, any permit fee revenue as well as cannabis business tax revenue will likely be limited unless private rights of action compel enforcement. Regarding fines, we found that the city currently receives minimal city-issued penalty revenue from delivery operators that do not comply with the city's current regulations. Therefore, even with adjustments to the fines, city-issued penalty revenue would likely remain minimal. The private right of action provision offers an additional enforcement tool for private entities, though state law already allows licensed cannabis businesses, including those permitted by the city, to pursue civil action against operators without a state licensed cannabis license. The city attorney's office has not found any reported cases of such lawsuits, so it's unclear whether eligible parties would choose to pursue civil action under this proposal. As noted by the presentation, however, the state's provision has a higher burden of proof and a more limited financial incentive compared to this proposal. Additionally, this proposal would also allow compliant city businesses to pursue civil action against operators without a city permit, regardless of whether they have a state-issued cannabis license or not. While the intent of this proposal is to regulate state-licensed cannabis businesses not complying with city regulations or unregulated operators, we note that the greater compliance challenge lies with cannabis delivery businesses that operate illicitly without state-issued licenses or illicit operators. Since again, they are unlikely to comply with the new additional local permit requirement. Additionally, since this proposal doesn't increase the city's enforcement levels, the permit and fines provision of this proposal may not significantly improve compliance among illicit or unregulated operators and materially increase the city's revenues, unless private right of action compels enforcement. During our discussions with the Development Services Department and the Treasurer, they raised concerns regarding implementation. These operational concerns include uncertainty over which department would enforce the new permit requirement, what enforcement of the new permit would look like from the city's perspective, questions about the city's authority to find businesses located outside the city boundaries, and whether additional resources would be needed to administer and enforce the program. We recommended that council inquire further with departments, including the city attorney's office, city treasurers, DSD, and the police department, regarding the practical challenges of implementing and enforcing these provisions and whether there are any outstanding issues. And this concludes my comments and are available for any questions. Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you, Treasurer. I always appreciate the input of the office. With that, Deputy Clerk, please proceed with public comment.
This item received comment form, which has been distributed to the council. We'll begin with in-person comment. DeAndre Brooks, please come forward. You'll have 1 minute to speak. While DeAndre walks to the microphone, I would ask Matt Kostrinsky, Marco Briones, Armand King, and Terry Best to please come to the front row.
Good evening, council members. My name is DeAndre Brooks, and I'm here tonight as a concerned citizen in strong opposition to this ordinance for several reasons. In a sense, it creates a monopoly on the delivery services and that's also counterproductive to the county's cannabis equity program that's been spearheaded to afford individuals who have been harmed by the war on drugs and living in over-criminalized communities an opportunity to get into the cannabis industry. So when we end up voting yes to things like that, it is super counterproductive to what we're trying to do as a county. And if you recall, this same issue came before this city council, and you guys kind of shut it down basically. So the county had to come in to give that demographic an opportunity to thrive in this industry. So again, I'm in strong opposition to this, and I urge you to consider everything I just said. Thank you.
Matt Kostrensky. I don't see you. Okay, we'll move on to Marco Briones.
Thank you, council members. Back again. We stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters of Local 135, the OTW, and ask you to support this ordinance today. Out-of-town cannabis delivery businesses are avoiding paying the city's cannabis retail tax and harming our local permitted cannabis retailers like the ones I've known since childhood that are here today. So our local cannabis workers are really feeling these effects of the unregulated activity, seeing their hours cut, layoffs, and colleague wages reduced. Workers and taxpayers deserve better. We support this, and we ask you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Armand King. Armand, you have several speakers giving time to you. When I call your name, please raise your hand to confirm you are here. Justin Lewis?
Gone.
Okay. Anthony Hawkins? Okay. Luis Cisneros?
Gone.
Okay. And Tizwan Levis? Okay. So that you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So what was pointed out was Alameda, right? Alameda problem. There is a problem with deliveries happening from outside of San Diego County. Very much so. That should be regulated. But what's not mentioned is our neighbors, La Mesa, National City, Chula Vista, Lemon Grove. Now they cannot deliver across the street without going through this. And I'm not here to fight for them. I doubt there's been reach out to these cities to let them know that this is about to happen. There has not been adequate reach out to communities. There hasn't been. My time's limited. Right now, the problem is, and what I'm here representing, those social equity applicants, I'm the program manager for the County of San Diego Social Equity. Private Right to Action is saying they are now, you all, by voting yes, are giving them a loaded gun to now attack the very people that should be in the city program right now. And these people live in your city. They live in Linda Vista. They live in North Park. They live in Southeast San Diego. They live here. And even if now they have to locate, because to have a delivery service, you have to have a building somewhere to deliver. Forget outside, forget Oakland, forget LA. San Diego residents that you're attacking here are people. So they have to have not a brick and mortar, but a building where they store their stuff. They live in San Diego. So my only ask is there a way for us, if we want to register them, because they're going to be legal operators, can we set up a process to where the city of San Diego knows who they are, but don't add an extra barrier to people who have been buried. And we stand here marching on the ashes of a program that we should have had, right? Because certain people are afraid to feel the wrath of high-paid lobbyists that are pushing this forward. I'm here representing the people from your city. Clean this up. Yes, we need to regulate outside people. Yes, we do, but this ain't it. Let's do this right, because once you sign this, once you say yes and this is put into place, you heard of a Trojan horse, right? It looks nice and shiny. The way it's delivered to y'all is we're keeping out all these outside folks. But meanwhile, inside that Trojan horse is an army ready to attack. They can't wait to sue these people out of business. They couldn't stop the county the same way they stopped the city. They couldn't. And we're about to have unlimited delivery services. Don't give them the gun.
Thank you. Next up, Terry Besswell. Terry walks to the microphone. I would like to ask Donnella Nelson, Victoria Bush, James Case, Nate Fairman, and allegedly Otter to please come to the front row. Please begin, Terry.
Thank you. I'm Terry Best, a voter in District 3. This appears to be an unnecessary law aimed at my suggestion would be to please remove the private right of action portion from the proposal. It is just wrong, and shame on
you. Shame on you.
Cover out-of-county delivery services. Please exclude all cities within San Diego County and San Diego County itself from this law. Each of our cities has a robust cannabis permitting process to be hostile to other cities' delivery operations. Please do this so that at the very least, the one license type to get into the industry is not blocked by special interests. You do not want the competition. The current city operators behind this proposal have enjoyed special consideration no other industry enjoys. Now the city is considering whether how the court would be infused by these special interests along with the rapid programs and any other
using the private right of action.
Thank you. Next speaker is Donnella Nelson.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Donnella Nelson. I am a proud resident of San Diego. I live just outside of the City Heights. I am actually here in support of this measure. Having worked as a licensed cannabis delivery in San Diego, I have firsthand seen the impact of an illegal market continuing to have legitimate business licenses, or legitimate businesses, employees, and consumers, while licensed operators invest significant resources into complying with state and local regulations. Many unlicensed operators continue to conduct business without oversight, accountability, and consequences. Licensed cannabises are required to test their products, verify customer age, maintain strict inventory controls, and pay taxes to support our local community. Illegal operators do not do none of those things. They undermine public safety, avoid paying taxes, and create unfair competition for businesses. Time I watch sales decline.
That does conclude your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Victoria.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Council members. My name is James Case, registered cannabis dispensary in San Diego. I'm not evil. I'm a 63-year-old grandpa. I do my job. I love my job. And those 4.5 years I've been doing this, I've driven incentive to pay business taxes. Those business taxes not only fund the works of the city, those operators also provide good jobs, like my union job, where the people who would have those jobs spend that money in the county, in the city. So those dollars not only help the county, they residually help the community.
Next speaker is Nate Fairman. Don't see Nate. We'll go to allegedly Audrey next, please. Audrey's coming to the microphone. So Todd Walters, Grant Tom, Robert Wood, Blair Beekman, and Eduardo Batista, please come.
Talk about a war on drugs. Did you guys ever think you'd be micromanaging drug turf competition and stuff like that? It used to be illegal, now it's not. I mean, one day it could be again, who knows? It's like on the edge of your seat, which is so interesting because people think it's still profitable. The government has taken like $60 billion from the industry, and it's like, govern me harder, daddy. I mean, talk about being able to make all the money you want and not have to pay taxes. Then you come here like, listen, we need you to regulate it. And I do not want these people coming into my territory, so you guys are going to need to regulate that. I mean, who would have thought this is where we would be? It is so interesting. New permits. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sorry, I don't understand why people think and be like, I want you to take billions of dollars out of my pocket. Like, but good for you guys, right? And it's supposed to go to city services? Looks like it's working.
Conclude your time. Our next speaker is Todd Walters.
Good evening, City Council and City staff. Thank you very much for your time. It's very valuable and I respect it. Most people aren't aware, but the legal cannabis industry is in trouble. It's not doing well. The unpermitted cannabis delivery services are taking business away from those licensed retailers who are paying taxes. The illicit cannabis market contributes to a shadow economy where wage theft, unsafe working conditions, and labor exploitation are more likely to occur. Workers in legal cannabis industry should not have to compete against businesses that ignore regulations and avoid paying their fair share. Stronger licensing requirements help ensure that cannabis businesses operating in San Diego follow the same rules. Ensuring operators contribute to the cannabis business tax helps generate revenue for our city essential services, which we know we need. Supporting this ordinance means protecting workers, responsible business, and the integrity of San Diego's regulated cannabis industry. In conclusion, I just ask you to support this ordinance and support the workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Grant Tom.
Good evening. Medical fair share of the cannabis retail tax. It's hurt some workers, causing reduced hours, and we've had tons of layoffs. It's really sad. It's important to maintain the integrity of San Diego's regulated cannabis industry. It's also important to protect the workers and San Diego taxpayer. This ordinance creates enhanced enforcement to protect those workers and their families, including the local high-road cannabis business.
Okay, so Ada's here, so you'll have 2 minutes, Mama.
Okay. First of all, my name is Robert Wood. I am a citizen of San Diego County. I was born and raised in the city of San Diego. I did prison time for selling marijuana. Now I go throughout the community, try to improve it in various ways, and I'm a social equity cannabis advocate. What that means is I'm one of the people that helped build the cannabis industry in the county of San Diego at one point. I'm one of the people who went to prison behind it, and now I'm out. I'm ready to do things legally. I hold 5 different degrees. One of them is an MBA. I understand barriers to entry. What barriers to entry mean is that when businesses want to keep people out of something, they come up with ridiculousness like this. They come up with things where they say, oh yeah, private right to sue. So you can just personally sue me into oblivion yourself. You don't need anybody else to do it for you. This is incredible to me. The people in the San Diego Social Equity Cannabis Program are people from San Diego. We were all arrested in San Diego for cannabis at some point. Social equity cannabis is just that. It's social equity. Do you think that any of these businesses that got together and concocted this thought one time about social equity? I can't see one face of one of these owners in here that came down to the social equity program and took the time to talk to us and try to interact with us. You would think that they would be embracing us, trying to work hand in hand with us, saying, you guys are trying to get into this, cool. Let us see what we can do to help you guys. Instead, they fought us tooth and nail the whole time. It's time that the game stop. It's time that this gets torn up, that the barriers to entry stop, and social equity is treated like what it's supposed to be. Social and equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair Beaker.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. I have not known much about this item. It was a learning process for myself. I really liked hearing public comment on it, about the social equity lack that seems to be a part of this. We try to make up rules and laws sometimes that we feel is just gosh darn good, and we're doing the good thing. It has a logic to it, it's a good logic. But that logic doesn't take into account what maybe is going on underneath. This is a group that seems to have some sort of real thing going on in wanting to nail social equity with marijuana purchases and how that process can work. I mean, Oakland has always created really good examples of social equity, Perhaps you can talk to them at this time. This needs a bit of more review and work, it sounds like. Thank you.
Eduardo Batista, followed by Anthony Ralphs and Morris O'Donnell.
Good evening, council members. My name is Eduardo Batista, and I respectfully oppose this cannabis delivery proposal. I support legal cannabis business regulation. It creates new barriers for licensed delivery operators and gives existing cannabis retailers the ability to use private lawsuits against competitors. It's weaponizing it. This is dangerous for small businesses, county operators, and future social equity businesses that may not have the resources to fight expensive litigation. Even the threat of lawsuit can discourage competition and limit access. You can also look California Motor Transport Company versus Trucking Unlimited. I think that covers kind of that. If the concern is tax compliance, create a simple registration and tax process. If the concern is illegal operators, focus enforcement on unlicensed activity. But do not create a system that allows established businesses to weaponize enforcement against licensed competitors. I urge the council to reject this proposal.
Thank you. That does conclude your time. Anthony Ralphs.
Yes, I had submitted one to speak in favor, but after hearing the deliberation, I think I'm going to change to speaking on changing my position from going in favor to in opposition is because I do think that the regulation has good intentions. I do want to see delivery drivers have the abilities that would be imposed. The $20,000 a day, just like none of if there is a confliction, a conflict, I think I would rather go with the socially equitable cannabis program. Thank you.
Thank you. Morris O'Donnell.
You actually cut off some of his time, but let me just start out by saying what Terry Beth said. Mr. Campillo, shame on you and your committee members. You were putting a loaded gun in the hands of people to go after folks who have been historically disadvantaged in this industry. When I served in the legislature, I wrote bills to do the exact opposite, to try and prevent this kind of cherry picking. And I'm going to stick around for non-agenda comment so I can speak a little bit more about what if other industries took this approach. What if other industries were given a gun and said, you can do private action and go after these opponents or these competitors? It would be mayhem. Shame on you. Shame on you, Mr. Foster. You know how this community has been hurt. So I just don't understand why you're picking winners and losers. Oh, wait, I do. Who has money? Who gives money to the Democratic Party? Who gives money to the party and then passes it on to candidates? The people that you are favoring on this. Shame on you.
Thank you. That does conclude your time. That concludes in-person public comment. I have started the 5-minute timer in council chambers. We will now turn to the virtual queue, in which there are 10 participants requesting to speak. We will begin with Terry Ann Skelly. Please begin.
Good afternoon, San Diego City Council, Chair LaCava. My name is Terry Ann Skelly, and I work with my planning group on good public health and safety policies and land use decisions. I support this policy. I appreciate the city's effort to know who is selling pot in our city and where the pot is coming from, since it doesn't seem to have a physical location within the city. This is a very good thing. We should be aware of actually being successful collecting cannabis business tax, and perhaps also remember that the comment by a physician trained in emergency medicine, pediatrics, and family practice on the selling of addictive products. The money being brought in does not cover the cost of addiction treatment, let alone any other harms, psychosis, cavity. Thank you for hearing my concern.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Banez. Please begin. Andrew Banez. I cannot unmute for you. You must press on.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good evening, President and council members. My name is Andrew Banez. I lived in District 4 for 39 years, and I'm a cannabis social equity advocate. I oppose the proposal. I support maintaining and expanding access to cannabis delivery services in the city of San Diego. Cannabis delivery provides a safe, convenient, and legal option for adults, seniors, people with disabilities, veterans, and patients, and residents who have difficulty traveling to a dispensary or a storefront. Delivery services allows consumers to receive product at home rather than driving to a retail location. Licensed delivery operators are regulated, subject to testing and tracking requirements, and contribute tax revenue to the city. Policy should encourage consumers to use the regulated market rather than create barriers that may unintentionally push customers toward unlicensed operators. As the city considers new regulations, I encourage you to support a framework that protects public safety while preserving reasonable access to legal cannabis delivery services. Regulations should be fair, practical, and designed to promote compliance.
Thank you. That does conclude your time. Madison, please begin.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the chance to speak. I support this ordinance because strong enforcement of cannabis regulations is essential to protecting young people in our city. We are not talking about delivery of ice cream here. When delivery of a drug like cannabis is allowed, it means products are spreading throughout our community that contain extremely high levels of THC and have been linked to increased risks of psychosis, cannabis use disorder, cyclic vomiting syndrome, impaired driving, and other serious health concerns, particularly for adolescents. That is why enforcement matters. Creating a local permit requirement for cannabis delivery businesses gives the city a tool to identify operators, monitor compliance, and take action when violation occurs. Strong penalties are also important because regulations without meaningful enforcement are simply suggestions. Every gap in enforcement creates opportunities for unlawful activity and increases the risk that harmful cannabis products will reach our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Becky Rapp. Please begin.
Good evening. My name is Becky Rapp, and I have serious concerns that the city is considering expanding delivery a comprehensive audit of San Diego's marijuana program, including the number of businesses operating, the amount of tax revenue being collected, and whether businesses are This report repeatedly references non-compliance, but does not include important enforcement data to support the need that this new permit program is needed. How much unpaid tax has been recovered? How many delivery operators have been investigated? Before creating new permits and expanding the city's marijuana framework, the city should first provide a full accounting of the current system. If we don't know whether existing businesses are compliant with the rules or paying the taxes they owe, how can we justify expanding?
Thank you. That does conclude your time. Please note that the 5-minute timer has concluded. With 6 speakers left in the queue, no other speakers will be taken. Next up is Peggy Walker. Please begin.
Good evening, Councilman Campillo. I represent parents, and thank you and support this. Strict controls are needed because bad players on both the seller and consumer sides ignore legal delivery requirements. Delivery services too often cheat the city of taxes, put youth in jeopardy of harmful underage use, fail to make ID checks, and deliver quantities not allowed by state regulations. A Bay Area delivery company was recently exposed for leaking their delivery databases containing customer names, home addresses, even medical data. Consumers should be made aware of these risks. An official list posted online of all future San Diego licensed delivery services would be helpful so that consumers can know that their deliveries are from.
Next up is Peggy Walker. Please begin.
With me, I just spoke.
Sorry, apologize. Next up is Councilman Levitt. Please begin.
Thank you. Thank you to Councilman Campillo for his good intentions. A
right step that should be taken before proposing any additional programs like this would be to do an analysis of the businesses already permitted. Are they compliant? Are they paying their taxes? Many businesses already see city codes as suggestions rather than requirements. They do not see meaningful consequences to businesses found to be out of compliance. It is no surprise many marijuana businesses' regulatory framework and disadvantages compliant businesses. That being said, there's nothing good about compliant or permitted businesses any more than unpermitted businesses. Seeking revenues over public safety is never going to end well for the city. Thank you.
That does conclude your time. Thank you. Next up, Judy String, please begin.
Good afternoon, San Diego City Council. Thank you to City Councilperson Campillo for considering this at his November ADNIR meeting. I'm sorry some of us maybe who didn't have an opportunity to hear the discussion then. I think we would have a better understanding of what the goal was behind this policy. Some intent to level the playing field for those who actually have permits in the city of San Diego to deliver and those who do not and are coming in and we don't know who they are.
Cannabis Education Project, please begin. I see you are unmuted. One more time, Cannabis Education Project. Okay, we'll have to move on. Next up, Shelby Hoffaker, please begin.
Good evening, my name is Shelby and I'm a board member of the San Diego chapter of Americans for Safe Access, a national nonprofit advancing safe access to cannabis for therapeutic use and research. I urge you to reject this proposed cannabis delivery permit and enforcement ordinance. It is redundant with state law and appears designed to let San Diego's existing cannabis monopoly block competition from the county social equity program, which is just weeks away from the anticipated vote on the codes needed to implement it. If you move forward, please make two changes. First, eliminate the private right of action, which will let anyone, including monopoly members and opponents of cannabis legalization, sue compliant operators and clog our courts. Second, please exempt operators already licensed by the county from this duplicative permitted system. Please reject this ordinance or adopt these fixes. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Hayes, please begin.
Hi, good evening, council members. My name is Kelly Hayes. I'm a resident of District 2 and an attorney who specializes in working with the cannabis businesses. I've been working with this industry and I've seen a lot of issues with this ordinance, and I strongly oppose it. First, requiring delivery businesses to obtain a separate San Diego permit is unworkable. To police and enforce this requirement. State regulations require delivery vehicles to be unmarked and indistinguishable from any other type of vehicle. The effect that this is going to have on staff is going to be burdensome, and it's going to accomplish absolutely nothing that you're trying to achieve. Additionally, the private right to action is duplicative. There's already state law that allows for this type of private action, and what you're proposing is going to create meritless.
Public testimony.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Thank you to everybody that spoke or called in. I'll turn it over to and we'll start with the proponent, Council
President, thank you to my staff for the good work on this. Thank you to all the members of the public for the participation today. I want to specifically thank the USCW workers who came to speak directly, members of the public, Labor Council, and members of, sounds like, almost every district for explaining why today's action is so important. It's abundantly clear that illicit cannabis delivery is a problem in the city. It's a problem that we haven't had a solution to address because it's difficult to address. It's layered with state and local laws and enforcement actions span from the state to city attorneys, local law enforcement, there's city administrators involved, land use enforcement in some cases. So from a regulatory perspective, it is very difficult to get this right. But we're here. The city regulates cannabis delivery from businesses inside city limits. And if they don't follow the rules, they don't get to operate in the city. They have a physical building and a permit to operate it. But what about the businesses that come in, drive in, deliver legally, by state or local laws, and then leave? To test if this is actually happening, you could right now order cannabis to be delivered to City Hall. A particularly out-of-city company is advertising on Weed Maps, on an online platform for marketing cannabis products, and has their location listed as the Gaslamp District, right here in downtown. Shouldn't surprise anybody, we don't have any licensed cannabis outlets in the Gaslamp. This business is listed on the state's Department of Cannabis Control's website as a state licensed delivery business. But their licensed operations is in Kern County. That means in order to abide by state law, they would have to wait until an order is made before they dispatch to deliver with a driver. That delivery driver has to be a direct employee of that company. They have to provide specific details on every receipt with information about that company, and they have to pay all applicable taxes. And they're definitely not. No local taxes are applied on their receipt. No state license number is listed on that receipt. That means that someone is either driving very fast from Kern County, the nearest city of which is 191 miles away, or they're storing cannabis products illegally within our city limits. And that business is clearly not abiding by worker and consumer safety protections. So I understand we have a current process for cannabis delivery services entering city limits. They're required to register for a business tax certificate and pay applicable taxes, but they're not required to provide any proof of their state license. So if we know that a business is violating their state license requirements, we can't really do anything about it yet. And in this scenario, let's say we suspect that a facility is within city limits is being used to store cannabis products for delivery. It's not allowed under current code. We can provide notice and send in code enforcement, ask PD to investigate, apply penalties if they have information on that business. We could file a complaint with Department of Cannabis Control to apply penalties or revoke a permit if the business has one. But we know that revoking a permit or having an expired permit does not stop that business entity from continuing to advertise and deliver cannabis in the matter of prioritizing this issue over others because our staff capacity is limited. The law, for example, but the concept is very simple. Harmed by the violation of the law, they can ask the court to enforce it. This is not a unique remedy. It's not a unique tool. It's not just any member of the public, by the way. A party that's harmed is a legal business, unions representing those workers in those businesses right here in San Diego. So the court can evaluate that evidence, determine penalties if they determine the law was not followed. So what does this accomplish and what does success look like if we implement this? First, we incentivize legal commercial activity by raising the cost of non-compliance. Registering for a business permit means filling out. You run the risk of high penalties. It is not a high bar that we are setting here. Penalties that can actually outweigh the financial benefit to skip on hiring employees and obtaining and renewing required permits. That's what we're looking at. With this, we intend to be clear that any cannabis business operating within our jurisdiction must make themselves known. They must follow the laws. As I pointed out earlier, a receipt from a cannabis company registered in Kern County, delivering in Gaslamp, advertising in Gaslamp, is violating multiple laws. And if the business continues to ignore the local and state laws, they can then be held accountable. But I think we ought not reward multi-million-dollar companies that decide it's more profitable to ignore the law, which means ignoring worker protections. I think we should protect workers. These companies are ignoring community protections around where cannabis can be sold. I think we should maintain the system that we've put up in San Diego, not allow outside entities to bring it down. The public who voted to allow commercial cannabis under the expectation that tax revenue would return back to them, that's what they wanted. And right now it's not working. So this proposal helps us collect that as well. So With that, I understand that to make this mechanism successful, we also need to properly implement a permit or a business registration, whichever way you want to describe it. We need to bring a fee study in order to determine the cost recoverable amount for administering the permit. And if we're asking businesses to submit a copy of their state license or business certificate and information on their owners, employees, I would imagine that would align with the amount for the business tax certificate, which is around $34 right now for small businesses or $125 for larger businesses. I see Coda's here from the mayor's office. I need the mayor's commitment via you that you will work to bring forward the appropriate fee study to.
Yes. Thank you for that. You do have our commitment to bring that forward. Post second reading, if this passes today, City Treasurer's Office will initiate the process to conduct the fee study and then bring that forward for council consideration later this fall.
Okay, very good. Also, along those same lines, working with staff to ensure that neighboring jurisdictions and the Department of Cannabis Control are properly notified of those changes to our cannabis regulations and understand how to register through the mechanism.
Full support there as well.
Okay. With that, Council President, I'm happy to move approval of staff's recommendation on this.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Campillo to move the staff recommendation. We'll go next to Councilmember Von Wolfert.
Thank you. Thank you very much to staff for bringing this forward today. Thank you for the hard work you've done on it. Thank you to the public for commenting, and thank you to our hardworking folks at UFCW who have negotiated some of the very first labor contracts in the cannabis industry. And things like a paid day off to go to the doctor, and fair wages. And if you're injured at the job, that your employer actually has to pay workers' comp. And these are the things that these workers are asking for. And I think that should be the bare minimum. And it really is very hard for cannabis businesses who are lawfully operating, including the new cannabis businesses who will be permitted under the county's equity program. You too can be undercut by the folks operating down the gas plant in Kern County, by folks operating outside, of our state even. Once you're licensed by the Cannabis Equity Program in the county, you too can use this law if you're located in San Diego. With the private right of action, it grants attorney's fees and costs to the prevailing party. So you don't need to hire an attorney, you can get one to do it on contingency. It will be available to any licensed business provider here. And y'all, that said, anyone who delivers a product for sale in the city of San Diego needs to be paying sales tax, and in this case, cannabis tax in the city. We have folks who deliver for Amazon or Target or Walmart, and if the point of sale is here in the city of San Diego, they have to pay their taxes here, even if their business is located outside of it. This is a basic tax revenue requirement. It's a licensure requirement, and we require all businesses to do this. So I will second the motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Von Wolfert. So we have a motion by Councilmember Campillo, second by Councilmember Von Wolfert. To move the staff recommendation, we'll go next to Councilmember Foster.
Thank you, Council President, and I guess I just need to reiterate and just state for the record that I think the discourse that you is without being inclusive on its onset. And I think that was the worst thing that we could have done. I appreciate the $20 million in revenue or roughly thereof that we have been receiving. I appreciate the good jobs as our partners have been working to make sure that we have good employee benefits and workers' rights. But we did a disservice. We excluded a community that has, and still to this day, is continuing to have challenges as we look at how folks can have what we call a life in this United States of America. And this is something that we have to stop. It sounds like, just from the line of, I guess from my colleague, Mr. Campillo, Councilmember Campillo, that there is work that needs to come back as we talk about establishing permit fees. It sounds like it should not exceed delivery.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As the ordinance is written now, the county social equity operators or any operator that's delivering from outside the city would be required to fill out the permit form, which would be an online registration. And I think the thing that we're hearing in discussion is the fee amount, and does that fee represent a barrier? And so, like you said, the second part of this is to bring that fee study forward and to determine the cost of service and also explore options for whether that be waivers, discounted rates, and explore the possibilities there. But we can't determine that feasibility without understanding the cost to begin with. So we benchmark it against the current business tax certificate because it's a similar mechanism of registering, providing the information online. It's not a land use permit where it's going to be intensive, so we're thinking ballpark can't be more than $50 to $100, but we have to be sure before we present that information to any other jurisdiction. And also to that, we have met with the County of San Diego over this question of concern, which is how will the county social equity businesses understand the requirements when they're navigating all of these hoops through the county's program? And we received their commitment that they have a list of the delivery operators, those Type 9 licenses for micro businesses that will be entering into the city. And they have a staff person ready to assist filling out that form, but are waiting on us to get that information to them. So we will work extensively to make sure that this ordinance targets who is intended and does not hurt who is not intended to hurt.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. And I guess I will turn to the city attorney as I am, as my office is working on a cannabis equity policy as we speak. And I will say that we have had conversations with other agencies, and one being Long Beach, that we've had some extensive conversations with as we talk about the cannabis industry and impacted folks and barriers. One thing that did come about that conversation as we talk about cannabis equity is the importance of delivery and delivery services. It is a lot different than trying to enter the market process. Just even, I'm going to take out what the cost of building the building or some of that, but just the cost of what we go through from a cost and time frame of what it does to someone that's trying to move forward in this industry. It is daunting, and it is a financial burden the way this process is moving right now. So with that, Madam City Attorney, I will say that my office will be contacting you as we continue to move forward with the cannabis equity policy, that we will have to potentially at some point relook at this policy that we are discussing today, and to make some provisions based on what we are going to be bringing forward, because I cannot bring a cannabis equity policy without a delivery provision. And that was directly a result of my conversations with Long Beach and what was brought to my attention. So it is a very, very important and critical component of an equity program. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. We'll be happy to discuss those issues with your office.
All right, thank you. With that, one last question, and just going to the IBA's comments that they provided. It seems like there are, the main purpose that we are doing is trying to get our arms around the illicit market, and especially, and I'm just going to say out of town folks, right? I'm going to isolate those and those bad actors. But clearly, it looks like there's concerns on just what that enforcement entails, what it looks like. Can you fill us in on just what those at least immediate challenges have been, or what is police referring to as, you know, we can pass a policy, but if we can't go out and
Definitely. I'll start and then I can pass it over to the departments to get their response. To enforce delivery is essentially the reason why we're proposing this with the private right of action. Our current enforcement capacity is exhausted. DSD has the authority to issue notices, and I'll let them finish on their department and their expertise, but their staff is limited. The information that they have is limited. So as is, they're unable to enforce against known delivery services, especially because they don't have a physical place in San Diego. So how can DSD enforce something that's not within their limits? And so that's where the city treasurer's office comes in, and they're responsible for administering the business tax certificate. And they would be the entity that's responsible for enforcing this, so to speak, from an administrative perspective. They would be administering the permit. But the question then becomes, what happens if a business decides not to register? They only have 5 registrants so far, and like you heard in comments, Oceanside set up a registry. No one registered because they don't have an incentive to. And so that's where the private right of action comes into play, where the current enforcement mechanisms aren't working. So there wouldn't be necessarily additional enforcement capacity to address that, even though it repeats some of the available enforcement mechanisms, I would say. So with that, I can turn it over to Coda if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, thanks, Summer. I think that captures it pretty accurately. It's really to supplement and support the current enforcement landscape there. Adding in the treasurer piece of it and having essentially a checkpoint for what we know is out there and not out there, that's helpful to support SCP and DSD's efforts separately from that. But really the private right of action is the big shiny thing through this new proposed policy. But staff is ready to enforce this, to implement this. I do have Elise Lowe from DSD as well as Ricardo Ramos from City Treasurer online if they have really any specific questions there, but we are all on the same page and ready to enforce.
Is there any, I guess, reporting, or how are we going to monitor? Is there any monitoring associated with this? How are we going to determine how this is progressing?
There's no monitoring requirements that are explicit in the ordinance, but because of that, it's flexible. Our goal would be to have something like the Department of Cannabis Control. They have a registry that's available for public viewing, so you're not contacting that staff person. Readily available list and active registry. So in terms of records, maintenance, and managing of that, we would envision an annual updated process, but again, it's up to the administration and department to determine what makes the most sense and what would be feasible on their end.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I guess I will fall back, Coda, and have some additional conversations so I can make sure I just understand, just from a practical perspective, what this enforcement process looks like. It sounds like we're going to leave it in the hands of the public to come in and try and do some things, which is a little concerning based on how the commentary and the feedback you get within the industry, as competitive as it is, and the issues that everyone's encountering. I will support this today as we continue to move forward. But again, and that's with the understanding and intent that I will be bringing forward the Cannabis Equity Program. It will have a delivery component to it. And so I'll be looking to make sure that any necessary provisions to make sure we are as inclusive as we can be as we continue to move forward and further progress with the our cannabis program. And again, I'm just going to close with, I am still very disappointed that we moved forward without a cannabis equity program. I hate that we gave almost $1 million back, which I think was a horrible decision and really an injustice to those folks who have been impacted. And just to turn this over to folks to take over this industry, I think was just a horrific and horrible. And so I'll conclude there, Council President, and wait for your comment.
Thank you, Councilman Foster. Not seeing anybody. Oh, Councilmember Eula.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Summer, for the presentation. Vic, for your help. Councilmember Campillo for bringing this forward. Kind of at a high level, groups and businesses that are taking advantage of San Diego, that are operating here, benefiting from this city, but not paying their fair share, I always have a problem with that. And so I appreciate the part of this that I'm certainly sympathetic to the concerns that the high standard that UFCW has helped establish for what workplace conditions and wages look like for those folks who work in the industry, that operate outside the city. There's operators who are not only not meeting that standard, they're just bad employers generally, and we certainly don't want to reward that. All of those concerns I am very sympathetic to. I appreciate the questions and comments from Councilmember Foster. I'm not sure I fully understood the answer to the question raised about implementation, because, and sorry, I appreciate your response, but IBA notes that DSD and Treasurer raised concerns regarding implementation of the proposal. Cody, you said you guys are ready to enforce. What's the gap there between what the department's told the IBA and the readiness to enforce? And I think there's even an acknowledgement by the within the language gap between what the city can do and what the expectation is as far as what needs to be done.
I think, and sorry, I'm not trying to speak on your behalf, I think there was things that has since been resolved, where DSD does know their role here within this proposed ordinance, as does the city treasurer. I think maybe there was an assumption that more was going to be added to their plates in terms of something that would require additional staff time or budget, which again wouldn't be, maybe wasn't something that was going to be ready for consideration today. That's been resolved. We do have a path forward here that we can do within our current capacity. We do have a game plan moving forward on returning with the fee study, and so we do feel confident that our
you put this here for a reason. Are there specific concerns that you that code is referencing here. I'm trying to reconcile what I know was put here in good faith and.
Hey, Councilmember. Yes. So while I'm discussing with the departments, both DSD and on how to enforce it, once we have this registered, there's some information that they might require that's not provided, and I defer back to the CTO what specific those are. For example, Type 9 licenses information that is collected at the state. That's not something they're able to receive as of my understanding now, but I would defer back to the CTO for specifics.
And we don't have anyone.
I believe we had Deputy Director Ricardo Ramos from City Treasurer Online.
Yeah, hello, this is Ricardo Ramos. The initial concern was just the enforcement. As referenced earlier, this is basically it's the registry, so we're collecting the data, and we can definitely do that piece, but the question is the enforcement. So both DSD
what's the answer? That's the question.
Well, as what was presented today, there is no real enforcement that will be performed by the city, just because we have a lack of resources.
So the answer is the private right of action?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So the concerns about the city's ability to enforce, and I should say implement through enforcement, those remain. What is solved for through the ordinance is the expectation that gap will be closed through private right of action. There's like a consensus of head nodding going on. Okay. I recognize that private rights of action are a common tool and an important tool, and I just, from a general public policy perspective, I have concerns and don't like the idea that we've basically written off the city's ability to perform a function that we think is worth writing the law for to private industry. That's just, as a general sense of the public policy, that doesn't seem like the direction we should head, but that's a resource issue, and that will continue to be a resource issue until the city is properly resourced. Which is a little bit of a separate issue, but not completely, because we're adding things to the city's plate while we're also removing resources at times, and I will continue to be frustrated by that, but that's not the decision that's in front of us. One other question, and Councilmember Foster was starting to get to this. There's three of those four, as I understand it, have equity programs, and as I think Councilmember Foster was saying, the delivery piece is the on-ramp to the equity program in Long Beach. So and I trust Councilmember Foster to do the work here, but what are we kind of doing more broadly to include the equity using their regulatory framework? That you don't have to answer that. Also a question for the mayor's office.
Councilmember Foster and our office has been working on the Cannabis Social Equity program and proposed policy for, been working closely together on that. That was one of the first questions asked when this initial proposal came forward, was how it may incorporate and impact Councilmember Foster's efforts. And so as we get closer to the finish line with that proposed policy, as this one gets legs under it and starts to be implemented, those are two conversations that absolutely have to happen concurrently to ensure that both are essentially feeding into each other.
Okay. I appreciate that. The last thing I will say is I just will echo the comments from Councilor Foster that the further we allow those who got their foot in the door for the regulated industry to sprint ahead, the more difficult it is to make an equity, to eventually have an equity program that will actually be meaningful. And we have folks who were shut out, who were targeted just as much for who they are and where they were as to what they were actually doing. We know the disproportionality of the war on drugs and what that has meant for generational poverty, the destruction of families, and long-term harm that will take generations to undo. The city has made an intentional decision to start a race and not even allow those folks to, not only do they not have their shoes on yet, like they're not even at the track yet. And I think that continues to be a concern, and my trust in Councilmember Ball we get that piece up and running in a meaningful way is significant. But I understand the frustration, and so again, the intent here, I think, is there's a lot that we are aiming to curb that I think needs to be curbed. I will never support the idea of businesses operating in the city without contributing back to the city. I'll never support the idea of businesses operating in the city and selling their workers short. And I want to make sure that we do right by those who were most harmed by a war on drugs that proven in every way imaginable to have been extremely harmful in a very disproportionate way. So with that, I say thank you again to Councilmember Campillo and his team for bringing this forward, and look forward to having the questions answered that have been raised today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Elo Rivera. We'll go back to Councilmember Foster. Thank you. Just one last question, hopefully. I guess just process wise, as there is more work to do, right? We have, this passes today, I'm assuming that's the first read, comes back for the second read. I guess my question is, timeline wise, and as we talk about cost of service, right, our fee study, those types of things, what happens while we are still going through that process and understanding just how this will be operationalized, I guess I will say? And what does that lead to the individuals who may be going through whatever they are going through? Let's say there is a county equity individual who wants to come in and sign up or do something. What does that do to their business and their ability to engage as we are trying to figure out the operational side of this, and to where we are able to function and understand? They go to court, who would be the legal, not legal business entity? What comes first? How does that play out?
In terms of the process of the ordinance and its implementation,
Right.
well, first this would be first reading, second reading, 30 days for commitment from the mayor's office to be able to bring that fee study in alignment with that timeline so that we have certainty before this ordinance becomes effective. Because we can't have an effective ordinance with this tool without the implementation. It can't work. So.
Correct, and I think it would, if that did happen, it would just become chaos. So what, I guess, how are you going to manage that? What's the plan for that?
So as we go through the second reading, and if that passes, the council, city treasurer initiates the fee study item. We are up against legislative recess at that time as well too, so there's a little bit of time here after initial passage and actual implementation I think during that portion is you do have a commitment from our office that this does not go live until that fee is obviously there. So it's a communication piece, really. And so I think the second part of the request from Councilmember Campillo was for our assistance in coordinating with other regional entities. As Summer mentioned earlier, incorporating equity pieces that the county already has in place into that fee study, I think is a good step forward. And so there's quite a bit of work here after initial passage, but we got to get this passed to initiate that work. And so it's really going to be a communication piece from both of our offices and this council to educate folks on what to expect, and then have a clear runway as the fee actually gets adopted by this council. We have a firm implementation date in mind.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is if for some reason that commitment in regards to operationalizing this is not stood up in time as we go through the second read, then are we going to timeline that correctly so that we are not, so we don't have an ordinance that has passed and made it through, and then we are in trouble trying to scramble, and you have this clause in here where folks can just start filing. So how are we managing that? You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. So I think yeah, there'll need to be a discussion maybe with City Attorney's Office here on if we push out the second reading and initiate to basically take this as the direction of the council saying, yes, proceed with establishing the fee, and then going through the process to conduct the study and have the conversations I described earlier before returning for the second reading, similar to how we do things if it's a meet and confer approach or anything like that. That way we can have a clear and clean implementation date. I think both options work here, but I completely understand where your concerns are of basically creating a opportunity for predatory litigation to come through and in play. So get that.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that we need to make sure we have a clear understanding and don't get ahead of ourselves and create other issues and then I'm sure creating more barriers for folks who have already been impacted from the war on drugs, right? So Madam City Attorney, I guess I will, the City Attorney's Office will add that to our conversation as we are preparing and continuing to move this item forward. I just want to make sure that we are not getting ahead of ourselves and doing more of a disservice than what we are trying to accomplish with this. Okay. Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Foster. Not seeing the rest of my, I'll ask a few questions of my own. One, thank you, Councilmember Campillo, and your D7 team on this. It's something we've talked about, we've acknowledged it, and it never went anywhere, even though we recognize the delivery services were happening there. And as I think we've all kind of landed on, the inability to enforce by city staff was probably one of the reasons that we were just kind of stuck. And acknowledging there was a problem is that missing piece that allows this to actually kind of be run forward. So thank you for working through it. So the questions that go through my mind are, unlike most ordinances and implementations that follow afterwards, it's the city that's doing the enforcement. This ordinance actually has a private right of action. Is there language in today's motion that says this does not go into effect until we actually have a permit process in place?
That's not in the motion language, but if the mayor would like to.
We go to the first reading, go to the second reading, we have an ordinance, and somebody, won't name any names, says, I just found somebody who doesn't have a permit in compliance. I'm going to initiate a private right of action. GOTA might be bound with operations side. Is it a crazy idea? I don't know. There's some big money there that
right of action can be enforced if the city treasurer's office hasn't created the license structure or the permit structure for an outside of the city follow the law.
I guess that's the question.
I think that it would, well, first to even prove it, you'd have to prove harm. Well, you'd have to show that you harmed economically, but I guess strictly speaking, it doesn't elucidate that exactly.
And code doesn't permit it to the operation side of DSD or city treasurer. So we actually have it in place.
Certainly, well, to be says the city manager shall promulgate rules and regulations to do that. So it's not create a system for internal administrative enforcement. So I would say it's almost nonsensical to think that a private right of action could come forward if the city manager, the mayor's office, through the departments, hasn't created an actual license to apply for. Because how could you possibly go forward and try to follow the law as an outside delivery company if it doesn't exist?
Yeah. Would the city attorney agree with that? Either one of you?
I'll ask Deputy City Attorney David Carlin to respond to that.
Yes, I would agree with that proposition that's been discussed by Councilmember Campbell.
So a private right of action could not be initiated until there actually is a permit process in place.
That, I guess to answer that question specifically, there's nothing ever to stop somebody from filing a lawsuit, as I think we all know. But to succeed in that lawsuit is you have to have a permit process in place to show that somebody's in violation of it.
That's right.
Okay. I got 3 lawyers saying yes on the back office, the engineer. For those of us that are not as steeped in this whole ordinance, there's no limit on the number of permits that can be issued, is that correct?
That's correct, as long as it's state licensed.
There was an assumption made that you have to have a tax certificate and the permit, and that the expectation is that that permit, we know what the business tax certificate amounts are. It's kind of a throwaway. It's probably the cheapest fee that we have on the books. But what if the survey, the fee analysis comes back and says, well, yeah, we're not going to do anything for $75 or $150. I don't even know what permit you can get for that. And it comes back at $300 and $500. We're just going to, we could subsidize it. We don't have to have full cost recovery. But I just want to set expectations that in fact it may not come in that inexpensive. So, and then we can deal with it because we can't subsidize it. We don't have to charge full cost recovery. And we can do, as I think it was suggested, waivers or carve-outs. I've done some of those and some of the fees. The other question is update our fees and penalties. A lot of us have grumbled that we don't think those rates are high enough to actually be a disincentive to someone breaking the law. I can think of lots and lots of examples of that. This sets a whole new bar of jacking up $10,000 for violation for abatement, $20,000 a day for a civil penalty. Opens up the universe in terms of what those can be. Why is this okay when we don't do that with any other fee and penalty? Was that just a policy call, or was there actually something that limited how much we could charge? I don't know who wants to answer that.
I can start with the policy direction. The fee establishment amount at $20,000 was a policy decision based off of the City of LA's penalty structure. The $10,000 value comes from what is existing in the Land Development Code that was recently updated as part of the June 8th action. So I'll leave it there.
So legally, again, this literally goes to the United States Constitution and the 8th Amendment, the excessive fine clause. It would have to be unlawful to be grossly disproportionate to the actual offense. Again, this is a fee that's up to $20,000 per day that a violation exists, and this would be, I guess I should say, this is the judicial civil penalty portion of this. So a judge would have to factor in what he or she would decide would be judicially imposed, right? I mean, so it's not a guaranteed $20,000 if we put a ceiling on it.
Okay, fair enough. Because again, we have private right of action. The city's policy generally has been private right of action, probably assume has no such strings. They don't have to say, is that correct?
Again, once the permit process is up and running, yes, that is correct.
That not only is a requirement, but it could be enforced immediately, unlike how the city typically is. I think the one question that I didn't hear from my colleagues was, we got a number of folks who apparently operate the county's cannabis equity program. I'm not familiar. What are the requirements that they had to go through to qualify?
This proposed permit, the county's permit, from our conversations, they have 4 categories. Every permit also includes the facility itself, and they have a flat. We have some county operators here that can give the specifics on the fees, but it's in the thousands of dollars. That's for the license for the county's program. An operator that's operating social equity or not still has to obtain their state license, both at the same time. So they would have to obtain their state license. Their license to the county is a separate licensing process application fee. And that's the county. What the city is proposing in this ordinance is the registration, the commercial business registration to do business and conduct business in the city. So it's not a land use permit in that sense. It's a business registration that's intended to complement the existing business tax certificate.
So if I understand correctly, the only new requirement for anybody who has a permit or license through the county is to fill out an online form.
That's correct.
That's it. So, and tax certificate, and then the permit fee, which we hope is in the $150 range. Okay, and I think that answers all the questions. So thank you very much for answering the questions. Thank you for working through this. I know some of the folks that were in opposition to this are not going to be satisfied with the dialogue here going forward, but I will be in support of this. So, Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Council President. I'll just be very brief. Mr. Carlin mentioned constitutional protections. It clicked in my mind that there would be a due process problem for the city to create a law and not create the permit to enforce the law, and then someone from a private action could go to a court to say this person doesn't have the permit that is required by law. So I think I think we can say with a high degree of certainty that no court would allow a private right of action lawsuit if we haven't taken the steps. There's also equitable remedies under the law that say, how could I know I was violating the law if I never had the ability to follow the law itself? So I appreciate Mr. Carlin bringing up that phrase, so trigger that history lesson.
So we all learned a little bit about the Constitution. Okay, I think I've gotten all my, so with that, I don't see anybody else on the lights. We have a motion by Councilmember Campillo and a second by Councilmember Von Wilbert. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
I have set up the voting system. Please cast your vote. The motion passes unanimously with Mr. Kidd and Mr. Faye passing.
All right, thank you again. Okay, I need to do a little bit of a time check. This is the point in the afternoon session where we do non-agenda public comment. Everybody willing to stick around to vote in person and remote? We got 6. So we're in good shape. Thank you, because I don't want to roll over until tomorrow. It can be done. So we will now take up non-agenda public comment. We'll take both in person and those participating remotely. Council members respect and appreciate the public's input and are fully committed to protecting every participant's free speech rights at council and committee meetings. Deputy Clerk, please proceed with public comment.
Rule 2.7, non-agenda public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Please note, if there are 8 or more speakers on a single topic, the maximum time for the topic will be 16 minutes. If you are in chambers, please submit your speaker slip. If you are joining us virtually, please raise your hand to speak by tapping the raise your hand icon, or if you are a calling participant, *9. We will begin with in-person non-agenda public comment. Jacob Lewis Edwards. I think he's still here, so the next person. Allegedly Audra, please come forward. You have 2 minutes to speak.
We good? Can you start my time over? Thanks. Yeah, you guys are funny with this drug stuff. You're like, we're going to fight the war on drugs by heavily regulating the drugs, making it extremely difficult for all those people who were, wrongly charged. Anywho, and it's funny to be talking about drugs while we have people who are whistleblowing against the government, like Summer Stephan, and the things that are going on in the jails at Las Colinas. And their brutal assault from that, Andrea Ebbing, with Anthony Warner, totally slammed her face into the ground. And he's playing the victim. He's like 6'3", 260 pounds. Said she was really competency evaluation, because in order to silence somebody, you got to really question their competency. So then, as long as you ask them some political questions, and the person doing the evaluation thinks that you're, I don't know, maybe a conspiracy theorist, and they'll say that you're incompetent. So how cool is that? I mean, she's got felony charges from, supposedly biting Anthony Warner, who, can still shoot his firearm, but has to take time off of work because his hand is so injured. But it's just interesting to see the lengths that people will go to silence people. And she might go into a mental hospital for like 2 years, who knows? And then eventually, somebody deems her competent, she might be able to face these charges. Right, and right now she's in on 2 misdemeanors. She's out on a felony. She had her brain aneurysm. No worries there. She might need some more surgery while she's in there. She already had to go to the hospital because they can't take care of her. But good job. Isn't that cool when you're exposing stuff and they see you're incompetent? Should be really exciting. Good job.
Thank you. Blair Beekman. Followed by Bob Kazuski, Anthony Rouse, Laurie Saldana, Marco Espinoza, and Terry Best.
Hi, Claire Beekman. Thanks for the report back on Andrea's, where she's at. I think she's passing her competency test, so.
No.
Oh, I'm not hearing the story right. She's going down again. She was up before, and now it's down. And it's just amazing she has to go through all of this. I mean, I really hope there can be a real effort to be working on this issue. And overall issues, how our police work, how our ambulance systems are working. Good luck in those efforts. I wanted to ask also how the I made a point, I was closing in 6 months' time, And I think we have to make a concerted effort to talk about our homeless issues more in the coming year, and how we do that, and more sensitivity in that department. And so I was really hurt in the presentation being dismissed today. I think we have to make that extra effort at this time, and I hope we can. So good luck how we take accountability, a bit of a break tonight, and just consider the ideas that I brought up before about budget issues, that we can still work on budget issues at this time. And the idea of a very small cut in pay to our city government staff. If that's 3,000 people at least, if they take a cut of say $600 a year, that's $50 a month. I think that's over almost $2 million in savings that can go to the budget. And that's not including our city council and mayor that they can take off. That's a lot of money, and I hope we want to consider such things. Good luck you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob Koszewski.
Video.
Okay.
A week ago today, I was hang gliding at Dockweiler State Beach in Los Angeles under the Dockweiler waiver that has been in place since 2017. The public has been able to hang glide at Dockweiler Beach for nearly 10 years under that waiver. A decade ago, however, hang gliding at Dockweiler changed due to a sequence of events that started right here in San Diego. On July 24th, 2011, a female student named Shannon Hamden was taking lessons at Torrey through the city video supervision when she was flung directly into the path of another student. She crashed and was badly injured. I was contacted by for witness, and I did. My testimony in September of 2014 was solid, and the case was quickly settled in Shannon's favor for an undisclosed amount. USHPA ended up. By November of 2014, I was retaliated against by your concessionaire, who conspired with USHPA in the spring of 2015 to have me expelled from my testimony, which ended my ability to fly at all USHPA sites, including Torrey Pines and Dockweiler. In early 2017, we met with newly elected Barbara Bree for help. Barbara Bree suggested a flight waiver to solve the problem, but she never followed through. Joe Faust and I also spoke to the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. While Barbara Bree did nothing here in San Diego, Los Angeles Supervisor Janice Hahn stepped up and actually instituted a waiver. The first Dockweiler waivers were issued to Joe Faust, Frank Colbert, and myself on July 26, 2017, and we have flown under those waivers without incident ever since. Barbara Bree dodged the issue for the rest of her term until her failed mayoral bid in 2020. Joe LaCava has followed her lead throughout his entire term. Reactivate the Torrey Pines City Park Advisory Board and institute a Torrey Pines flight waiver now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Anthony Rouse.
Good afternoon, City Council. I just wanted to speak about the concern that I have, and hearing the expressed financial concerns earlier today. Ms. Campbell, who's no longer here, expressed the $3 million concern that she had with the study that was done for the Phase 2 project for SDG&E. She thought that the $3 million was too much, that these studies are costing the city too much. I have a real difficulty in understanding how she can, on one hand, find problems with the cost of the studies that cost $3 million to help us potentially get off of a monopoly that's making $1 billion of profit every year, but she doesn't raise a single point with the fact that the police budget, the public liability fund, has exceeded over $116 million in the last 10 years, or that this year alone, it's already exceeded $42 million, and we're not even finished with all the settlements. I have not heard the side of the city that does not address before, and multiple times in this chambers, he said this is the tale of two cities. And he's right. We do have one half of the city council that understands and respects our privacy concerns, that understands and respects that we are not property of the state to be tracked in our whereabouts of where we go, that understands in the Supreme Court's recent ruling that we have freedom in the whole totality of our movement. Although the roads are owned, yes, by the city, and therefore, yes, y'all do have jurisdiction over the city's roads, we own our own personal sovereignty over our own bodies. And there are cities that are being sued, including, I believe it is Santa Clara.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to those of you who are actually still here, and some of you are maybe even paying attention. I just got off of a Zoom meeting with the Democratic Club, and one of the council members who's not here tonight was in that meeting. So I'm not sure where the priorities are, but it's a little concerning to me when you have discussions on issues that are important to this body and people leave early and then end up at another engagement elsewhere. You're concerned about the impacts on public health and safety and giving private right of action to others in a certain industry. And I just want to suggest that there's another industry in town that has serious impacts on public health and safety. Is it just me or is there feedback? And if you were to give private right of action to people, I think you would go a long way to closing several problems in our city budget and also our housing. And of course, I'm talking about short-term vacation rentals. They also lack enforcement. They also have people operating without permits. They also have people putting lives and safety at risk. Around the corner from my house, there's a short-term rental that has caught on fire, that has flooded raw sewage into the streets, and it took me over a year to get someone to respond. If I had a private right of action, I could have gone at them as a property owner nearby. Oh, and also, they don't pay commercial trash hauling fees. They pay residential fees, and their businesses operating in our neighborhoods. If you were serious about private right of action, give residents who are next door to short-term rentals that are violating the permitting, violating health and safety, and let us go after them. Because we have people that own multiple properties that form consortiums that buy up properties at Ocean Beach and elsewhere and push out full-time residential renters and homeowners. If you want a right of action, apply it to short-term rentals.
Thank you. That does conclude your time. Margaret Espinoza.
Good evening, Marco Espinoza. Boston Avenue Park Ideas. It's not helpful if I don't have a map for you, but sorry. I know I already iterated the coming onto the freeway, the bollards, that first section of park between the freeway on-ramp and the bridge that goes over the freeway. I think that could be a little kiddie section. In the diagram that shows how it's zoned, it doesn't include actually the walkway and the bridge. So when I got to the park, I was like, oh, that's something to consider. On Google Maps, the park actually looks rather small. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of space, but once you get there, quite a lot of space for a good amount of park if it doesn't end up being that. Tennis courts, soccer field, in the portion, and that second longer portion, definitely could fit there. It does need to be like a net or something that goes along that nice new barrier wall for the freeway so that balls don't go into the freeway as cars are going. And then the second portion of the land use available for park. Right now it's a recycle center. I remember I heard that possibly Sophie Joe's wanted to take that over, which then only left like a little strip on the side along Chillis Creek. And if the creek was a lot cleaner, a lot nicer, I mean, you could make that into some kind of little beach kind of thing, but it's a really dirty water, so. And if the recycle center does move out and the Sophie Joe's is going to move in, that's a huge plot of land for us. Bummer that your measure did not pass, but I saw it advertised as 5,000, but on the ballot it was 8,000. Try again in November.
Thank you. That does conclude your time. Terry Best.
Terry Best, District 3. Please stop allowing special interests to run. Stop doing the bidding of rich white men to fund your future political endeavors. Stop allowing special interests using labor to attack those less fortunate. This nonsense seen here is precursory support for your 2028 mayor campaign. And it looks ugly. Is that the look you want? Further marginalizing vulnerable people? Again, shame on you, Mr. Campillo.
Thank you. That does conclude in-person public comment. I've started the 5-minute timer. In council chambers, we will now turn to the virtual queue, in which there are 7 requesting to speak. We'll begin with Terry Ann Skelly. Please begin.
Good evening, San Diego City Council, Chair LaCava. My name is Terry Ann Skelly, and I work with my planning group on good public health and safety policies and land use decisions. Where I live has windy, sometimes rocky roads over grown foliage, and some roads are poorly lit at times and dangerous when it rains or is windy, as it's been in the last couple of days. June is Brain Awareness Month, and I'd like to talk about the dangers of marijuana and alcohol impaired drivers. This is a situation we know well in our family-oriented neighborhood with our perilous roadways. Recently, the Journal of Adolescent Health article wrote that marijuana policies decisions must acknowledge that access to an intoxicating substance that appeals to young people will end up causing harm. No more so than when we drive. Union Tribune again described the conditions of our roadways and the delays to fix them. I would like to respectfully suggest that damaged roadways combined with drug-impaired driving is one more lawsuit about to happen. At least there is one thing you can do to mitigate that has been contributing to the dangers, the marijuana billboards from our roadways. Summer 26 would be the perfect time for policies to happen that would ban marijuana from our neighborhood roadways.
Thank you. Next up, Peggy Walker. Please begin.
Thank you. Council members, food and gas prices may be high today, but drugs like high-potency marijuana have never been more affordable or available, and that's reflected in today's marijuana delivery item addressed earlier. In a society seeking the convenience of home delivery for just about everything, that item shows psychotropic drug consumers are no exception. And the upshot of that is that a society where people can get high so easily is also less healthy and less reasonable. That truth was put forth in a recent New York Times article headlined, "It Shouldn't Be This Easy to Get High," and so many of us parents agree, citing the fact that 48 million Americans are addicted to an intoxicant like marijuana. The Times suggests we should be making it easier for people to get help rather than get high, a straightforward way to curb uptaking use and its outcomes of poor physical and mental health and addiction. The Times proposes is higher taxation on marijuana, reasoning that people seek it less when something's more costly. With that in mind, I ask your consideration of increased taxes for all marijuana products, however sold or delivered, and more transparent reporting of how much in taxes for marijuana is being collected, and transparency in how they're being used by the city. Thank you for that consideration.
Thank you. Next up is Judy Strang. Please begin.
Good evening, San Diego City Council. I appreciate that you state that doesn't go unnoticed by the public when you make those sorts of sacrifices. I want to speak to a terminology that we're seeing in public health more and more, and that is called gas station heroin. It's kind of used as a catch-all terminology for gas station. Those products so available to our young people. They include, and they're often sort of spotlighted, kratom. They're also including what's called magic mushrooms, nitrous oxide, and other products that contain high THC, hiding under CBD products. I just mention it because the terminology is getting used more and more about where our children buy these items, and gas stations is right at the top of the list. And the number of gas stations in the city of San Diego, one can only guess. And if we were to enforce the laws against these products here in our city, just think of the amount of money that we could bring in. So as you hear the terminology gas station heroin, and realize that they're talking about all the intoxicants that are now purchasable at gas stations, let's think what we could do to at least stop it by enforcement and for everybody. Thank you.
Please note that the 5-minute timer has concluded with 4 speakers left in the queue. No other speakers will be taken at this time. Next up, Phyllis. Please begin. Phyllis, please unmute. I cannot unmute for you. Phyllis, I cannot unmute for you. We're going to have to move on. Okay. Next up, Becky Rapp. Please begin.
This is Becky Rapp. I'm invited tonight to raise concerns about transparency and accountability in San Diego's marijuana permitting program. Almost 7 years in the public process for the original marijuana outlet application. Delivering comments and voiced strong concern about placing a pot shop in their neighborhood. But what has happened since that approval is basically invisible to the permit has now changed hands multiple times. The operator that the community initially evaluated is no longer the operator today. Ownership has shifted through acquisitions and corporate transactions, and now the business is associated with a brand called The Cake House. Residents were never notified of these changes. There were no public hearings, no neighborhood notices, and no requirement for the city to explain who ultimately controls these permits. The community was fully engaged in the original decision, but it has been in the dark for years since. That raises a transparency question. If public input is required to approve a pot shop, why is there no transparency when that same permit is sold or transferred to an entirely different company multiple times? The operator behind the permit is not in minor detail. It speaks to accountability, business practices, and the enforcement history. That also raises concerns about branding and public perception. A name like The Cake House does not communicate to the public that this business will be selling highly intoxicating products. Rather, the message it sends is that RB now has a new bakery in town. This is unacceptable, and communities deserve to know who is operating in their neighborhoods, not just at the moment of approval, but throughout the entire life of a permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, John LAA. Please begin.
Hi, John Brady with Lived Experience Advisors. So my team and I went through all the press articles and were in attendance or listening to the majority of the budget meetings. And we were stunned to find out that the city It's not only defunding the partial operation over at the Neil Good Day Center, but you are de-licensing it, meaning that nobody could go in and fill in the money or move in and operate that separately from the existing provider. I can't believe after all to say that, well, actually, I probably should believe it, because obviously it was hidden from the public. The fact that you were taking away the only place that homeless people could go in the entire city and not be harassed, at least from 9 to 5, a few days a week. I'd like to understand how this decision occurred, and was that included in the budget?
Last caller is caller with the last 4 digits 8700. Please begin.
Thank you. First of all, Joey Sunyata, first of all, a big thank you and 5 stars for the performance by our Deputy City Clerk. Thank you so much. And then next, President LaCava, your humor was present today. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. And then a request from Mr. Stump. I'm wondering if you could, during managing the public comment, give the public his 9-step plan for SDG and E. That sounds interesting. Next, I want to speak to the gentleman who used the word union bust. And I felt his anger in those words, yet I respect that anger. Next, I love the boldness and the fight that was present in the chamber today. Did you feel the beautiful tapestry of all the people today? There was a rhythm to it, like a rhythm we feel when we say one people, one family, one San Diego. I'm going to get serious tomorrow. Look forward to that. Much love.
Thank you. This concludes non-agenda public comment.
All right. With that, does the city attorney have anything to report out in closed session?
There is nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Council meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026 at 10 a.m. or shortly thereafter.
All right, well, it's never a dull moment in San Diego. Join me tomorrow. We'll be back for the morning meeting. Talking about drugs here. Interesting, right? Fighting the war on drugs by dealing drugs. So, anyway, all right, stay classy, San Diego. God bless you guys. See you tomorrow.